Hi, everyone, and welcome to the AI Interconnect podcast, the show where we dive deep with the innovators shaping the future of technology and the world. I'm your host, Laurent, and today we are thrilled to welcome Scott Evans, founder and CEO of eCierge. And Scott is on a mission to unify building operation, resident engagement, and IoT into what he calls smart block communities. In this conversation, we will explore Scott's journey, the breakthroughs and the pain points he's navigated, and how AI is supercharging PropTech for 2025 and beyond. Let's get started. Scott, thanks for being here and welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Good day to you too.
That's great. That's a great company. You basically created all this. You're gonna tell us a little bit about what you did, but let's kick off. Tell us about, first of all, your journey. What sparked the idea of eCierge, and how did you go from concept to launching a unified PropTech platform within months of graduating built in Miami?
Well, the journey started long ago, about 15, 16 years ago. We started, a friend of mine, a developer, was writing a platform for buildings during the last boom. So 2005, that area of time, we were looking to provide a concierge type service electronically. And we worked together. We kind of came about because I was hired by a company to take them on a journey of how to do what we would call mass customization. So audio, video, all these condos want their speakers and their TVs and their audio and everything else. And we had to come up with a way during this building boom to offer it as instead of a custom package, a add-on package. In other words, I just picked which one I want. When I bought my unit, it was done in the sales process, and so it got wired, it got installed, everything. And how would we deliver 1,000 custom units in a property or multiple properties around? And that's what the company was about. And I had some experience in that, developing mass customization through another project I was working on before that. And so we got together, and part of the package they were offering was a touch panel on the wall, and it was designed to, like the valet, get my car. I'd go to the touch panel, hit a button, boom, get my car. And I wanted to put an order into a restaurant down there. We worked on how to do that. That was long before iPads were out, anything else. So we were using Crestron and all kinds of other things, but how are we sending a request to the restaurant downstairs or across the street? We actually took remote printers, and we actually put a printer in the restaurant, and they'd put their order in, and the ticket would pop up on a printer in the restaurant. So very rough tech, just trying to figure out how to do stuff, a bleeding edge technology. There was no such thing as PropTech when we started. So he started writing this platform, and over time, as we got more properties involved in it, the management company said, hey, we need a way of managing the back end. The front end's great, that's cute and everything else, but I really need a way to manage the building, because they were using paper. Excel, even before Excel, they were using paper. So he ended up writing a platform called Vertilink, and that platform became a whole back end integrated with accounting, things like that, and is over the years. And Vertilink is still around today. But we've remained good friends. I actually worked for him for a while. I traveled all over the world, literally. I was doing like 150,000 miles every 6 months. But pitching, all kinds of things to anybody that wanted to listen to what we were doing, working with AV dealers, things like that. And so that's what I ended up doing. And then all of a sudden we had the real estate crash in 2007, 2008. And I stopped flying one day, and I can tell you the date. I just got back from Mexico City. I landed. It was June 15th. I didn't get on a plane again for 5 years. I went from flying 5 days a week to flying nowhere. And we were all sitting around and we're like, what are we going to do now? I've been flying all over pitching this to everybody. And then we realized that there are more condominiums outside our door here in Miami than there's anywhere in the world. I mean, you can walk down the street and hit 10 of them within, blocks. And so we started on that and started working locally, so to speak. And we kind of divided the responsibilities up. He stayed on the software side. I did the hardware, the installation, the training. I built a whole company around service and stuff like that. Back then, they didn't have a lot of money. So it was all a matter of getting them to buy, printers and everything. And so I built a whole business around that model and installed them, made sure they were taken care of, and next. And so that went on for several years. And basically I got to a point where I got burnt out on dealing with condominium boards and board members. And, you fight with them all the time over basic things like, hey, you need a new computer. Well, why do I need a computer? Because your building runs on a computer and your employees trash it. Well, why are they trashing it? Because they work at the front desk. That's what they do. They're bored. They got nothing else to do. So needless to say, it just got to a point where I was like, I've had enough. And a friend of mine said, hey, listen, I'm looking for somebody to help me out with this low-income developer that they need all this technology, but we got nobody to supply it, and I don't have anybody reliable. So I built out another company, and that's what we did. We just worked with this one developer. We did about three projects a year for them, everything from gates to fences, security, access control, all those things to make it all work together, and designed a system that they would take from one project to the next. So it kind of became almost cookie cutter what we ended up doing. And we had that business going. I had a crew of people, and we did everything. And that lasted right up until COVID. And then they started shutting down, and there were no more contracts. I had to let my guys go. It got pretty you build a company, you're going great, you're going full steam, and all of a sudden you have nothing to do. I did one more project after that myself, and then I took a year off. Like, mentally, I needed a break. I've been in this industry for 25 years now, and I just got tired, and I took a sabbatical for a year. And I was having a lunch with a friend of mine one day, and he knew about the software, and he goes, hey, do you think we could do something with that? I go, yeah, I can access the software. We're still friends. We could figure out something. And he said, yeah, I'd like to do this in Canada. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. I can do it anywhere in the world. It doesn't really matter. And so what we ended up doing was I started thinking about it. And I said, okay, if I was going to start this all over again, what would I do? What would I want the software to look like? And I knew the product that he had was not outdated. It was kept up to date. Visually, it probably could use a refresh, and it does need a refresh. And so I started talking to him, and I said, okay, if I was going to do this, what would I do? I would take property management, because that's really what most in the industry right now build is a property. Competitors are all about managing the property. But I'm like, okay, this is 2023 when I was talking about this. And I was like, well, there's a lot more technology out there now. And what are we doing about all the technology in the property, in the building? So my vision came about from just thinking about this. And I said, you know what? We need one platform that does it all. So you have commercial, in the commercial environment, you have a platform that does building management. And then you have an operational platform that does property management. In the condo world, you don't have that luxury, because you've got a board of directors that are trying to save as much money as possible. And they don't understand any of it. They're not asset managers. They're not property managers. They hire property managers, but they expect the property managers to know what an asset manager understands. And that doesn't happen. So I said, let's build a platform that combines both of those things into one, because there's all kinds of technology in a building. And when we started Vertilink years ago, it started as, what's the one issue they have that I can fix? You know, the whole thing of building software and then expecting people to use it is never successful unless you can take away a pain point. So if you can find a way to build a platform that can take away a pain point, then you have a product that you can sell. You know, I talk to a lot of founders now, and you know what they're thinking of, and they have some great ideas, but then it's like, what problem are you solving? And it's one of those things is, if you are not solving a problem, you have no product. You're just building something because you think it's cool. It's a toy. And there's a lot of people building stuff out there that they're toys. So that all came to a fact. So then I said, okay, what are the next areas after we took care of? So we've got a good platform that takes care of property management. In the building side, what is there? Well, multifamily, there's 1,000 people out there building PropTech for multifamily. An app here, an app there. You know, everybody's got to have an app. And what I call it is app fatigue. Why do I need 16 different apps to run a building? I need one platform that will run the building. So that's really what I designed, was eCierge OS. So it became an operating system for the building or the property. And it combines everything together. And that's where we got into Built in Miami. That's how I kind of found it. I was like going around, and the friend that I said, you know, we want to do it in Canada, he was like, oh, I don't want to fund it. Okay, so I got my brain going. I got a whole platform going. I'm just going to push down the road and see what I can come up with. So I started laying out the platform, and then one day I was on LinkedIn and I saw this advertisement for Built in Miami. You know, it's like an 18-week course on how to build a startup. Okay, I've done 5 companies up to this point, all bootstrapped, all done on myself. Let's try something different. I'm a little older now. I'm a little smarter. I'm a little wiser, a little less of an ego. And so I figured, okay, I'll apply. If I get in, I get in. I'll be the token old white guy, you know, that gets in. Instead of these, I'm picturing this whole thing, a bunch of hoodie kids in there, you know, hacking away, and that's what it is. So I applied. I got accepted, and I went to the first meeting, and I was like, there were all kinds of people, women, young, old, everything. I was like, wow, I was really shocked that, you know, it turns out they had about 300 people that got into this program, and they were online. Some people were online. Some people were all over the world. They were participating in this program. And so I went religiously every day, and, you know, went through the whole process. You know, at the end of it, I called it a mini MBA on how to start a business, you know, how to do a startup. And, you know, they did things that, not that I had never done them before, but I had never done them in that way. And it's like, okay, what's your vision? Paper game. You know, there were all kinds of things that we went through in the beginning to define what you're trying to do, what your sales are, you know, things like that, step by step. And it was a step-by-step program. And it was really good. And I met a lot of really good, interesting individuals. But it occurred to me about halfway through this, as I'm going through the process, I'm like, some of these people have some really good ideas. And I said, why can't I just incorporate their ideas into my platform? So I started talking to them. I said, hey, how about we do this? You're building this. I need this for my platform. Why don't we partner on part of this? I'll give you a platform that we can build this product into that you're doing. You can do your own thing. I just want this piece included into ours. And sure enough, I made agreements with, I think, 6 different founders with their products. And they were all parts and pieces that I envisioned. As I envisioned the platform, I started saying, you know, why can't we take all this stuff that's out here that's good and add it to the platform? And that's really what we've done. That's why I ended up changing the name to eCierge OS, because I realized that's what we've become. We're a platform that anybody can come into, and we can write an interface and bring you into that platform. So we're basically an operating system for property. So that's where the concept and the idea and everything else came about. And that's how it's evolved over time. I mean, we have some core strategies that we look at now. We know that most of these buildings are having been in them for so long. We know their infrastructure is wanting. It needs to be fixed. The way things work in this world is you have all these different vendors that came in, your access control guys, your camera guys, trying to get an IT guy in there to do it. And they build these networks inside the building, but they're all separate. Nobody thought, okay, let's build one management network. Let's keep it in the same environment. No, everybody built their own thing, different IP addresses, different schemes, everything else. And so I took my IT background and I said, okay, what do we really need to do? I said, well, we need a smart riser. That's one of the first things. We need infrastructure that's all together, that's all tied together, all managed in one particular way. And then a big component that started to come out of all this is cybersecurity. And everybody's like, well, nobody's hacking the building. I'm like, yeah, they are. It's happening. It's just quiet, because hackers have realized there's money involved in these buildings. And there's a lot of uneducated people operating PCs, so they're easy to get at, phishing campaigns, things like that, emails, understanding. Most of the time when we got into these buildings early on, they didn't understand anything about domains, emails, things like that. That's an asset of the building, the name of the building, the marketing, the realtors are the biggest tech driver in this industry. And it's funny, there is a statistic that was done by a survey done by Parks and Associates, and they said that 44% of all technology decisions are made by the realtors when a developer's developing a property. Because what's the first thing the developer does? He gets an idea for a building, he rolls over and goes, okay, how am I going to sell it? Because that's his goal, to build something to sell it. So he calls the realtor. The realtor goes, oh, we need this, and this. And the developer goes, okay. So then he figures it out, goes to an architect, gets it designed, goes to an engineer. The engineer copies and pastes, everything they've done before. Same with the architects. A lot of them just copy and paste change a few things here and there. It makes it quick and easy. And now they have a set of plans. And we started looking this and banging our heads with developers because they have a mission. Developers' design idea is, I'm going to develop a building, I'm going to sell it, I'm going to get out. But there's a lot of components now that have to be taken into account in this day and age with technology. Did I put the infrastructure in right? Did I put it in the right place? Do I have enough connections? Do I have enough piping in the building? Things like this. So I started looking at that at the same time as I was developing this platform and said, why don't we help these developers build a better building? Well, whenever you try to help a developer spend money, it's hard because developers don't want to spend any more money than it's absolutely necessary to get into a building. So we went back to that whole statistics. So turns out the next 22% of the tech decisions in a building are made by the developer. So really 66%, 2/3 of the technology decisions that go into a building are made by two individuals through no fault of their own that have no idea about technology. It's like, okay, there's a hole here. How do we fix this? So I put together another company called TechGC, and it's a consulting company. And I got together a bunch of guys from the industry that we knew, started talking about this, and it's grown. We started with about 10 or 12 individuals. Now we're up to like 16 different people, and we meet once a week, and we talk about technology. In fact, I have 3 of the people that designed the technology for Hudson Yards in New York that serve with us. So we have specialists in all different parts of technology. And so what we try to do is get with the developers and help them become that technology component that they need. So they have an electrician, they have a mechanical contractor, they have their plumbing contractor. Well, they have a technology contractor too that oversees that can oversee the technology components of it and help them through that process. And I looked at it as, okay, if we can educate the developers, we can build a better building, then they need an operating system to run the building, and that's where eCierge comes. So that's sort of
Love
been
it.
the evolution of how we came about of where we're at today.
That's a great story. Comes out from very far away, before any kind of technology, only the fax machine maybe, or the printer at the time. But okay, let's break down the heart of the eCierge. Your operating system dashboard, and resident mobile app you have, and an integration ecosystem, basically. How do they fit together to solve the biggest pain point that property manager and homeowner association face, basically?
Well, you have a couple different components of that. So understanding condo and HOA and homeowner associations, they're different from multifamily or commercial. Commercial and multifamily, you have an asset manager, but one guy that's responsible for that asset. That owner owns 10, 20, 30 properties. So the asset manager knows what type of system they want. They want to manage all this, and they have all these platforms that are out there. And the whole entire PropTech industry just trying to get their attention. Millions and millions of dollars are going into people just coming up with apps, and they think it's cool, and the developer's going to want it, and it's so many choices out there. And then you have management companies that manage all these properties as well, and they put managers on. And the biggest part of our thing is in the condo and the HOA world, each building is owned by three. Let's take a 300 unit building as a good example, just for a number. That building's owned by 300 people. It's not owned by one person. It's owned by 300 people. And they elect a board of directors to manage that property. Most of those people are volunteers, and they come about and they get into this board because they want to see their property taken care of, and they want to manage their property. None of them are experts in buildings. Maybe every now and then you find one guy or one person, one female, one individual that knows a little bit about finance, another one knows a little bit about construction, those types of things. But it's not a professional board. It's not a professional board of directors. It's just a bunch of people that live there, and they just want to make sure that their community and the money that they get charged every month in fees goes to keeping the building going. And so it's a different approach. You have to approach them differently. You have to work with individual boards. And so it's not I go to sell to one and I get 30 buildings or 40 buildings. No, I got to go work for every building I got. I got to go through that board. Even if there's a management company that manages 40, 50, 200 properties, I still have to go to each individual board and convince them this is what they need to do. And that has its advantages and its disadvantages. In our industry, our competitors, there's only 5 to 10 companies that are building software for these properties, because it's a challenge. PropTech, there's a couple thousand properties. And so you have to convince each board what you're doing and how do you do this with an ROI? And that's the big thing, is the ROI. They have all this money that they have, but they want to spend it reasonably. They've got a lot of expenses, and they don't want to increase their fees. And part of what you're seeing now in this industry in Florida is people have been neglecting reserves for years. And this is when the Champaign Towers collapsed a few years ago. It was all deferred maintenance that was the issue. They didn't do things because they didn't want to spend the money. And this brought to light a big problem in the industry, is that they weren't funding reserves. So the state came in and said, okay, you're not going to do it on your own. We're going to mandate that you do it. You get these reports, engineer studies, all this stuff. And this has all happened in the last 3 to 4 years. And it's become a real big issue because now they're getting special assessments of millions and millions of dollars, and people that live in there is like, I can't afford it. I've been on a fixed income for all these years. I've lived there, but you haven't put any money into maintaining your property. So as a condo, you have to maintain the building, the infrastructure. And if you're not putting money aside to maintain that infrastructure, then that infrastructure is going to deteriorate. And so that's where we're at right now, is all these buildings now have to find money to fix all these deficiencies that they've been neglecting for years, because they've tried to keep the cost of living there down so they don't have to spend all this money. But somebody's got to pay the piper. And that's where they're at right now, is those that are owning the property right now are paying that piper for 20 years of people neglecting to put money in, a little bit of money at a time. Now they're getting special assessed. People are having to sell their condos because they can't afford the assessment. There's a lot of things going on. So when you look at the totality of the everything, and then you look at technology, okay, how can technology help? And that's kind of the thing, is people are all saying, well, how can it help? Technology costs money. It does. AI is not cheap. It takes a lot of money to run the language models, and you do the searches on the servers and stuff like that. And, big companies are investing billions and billions of dollars in servers and things like that. It's all going to get paid for with AI. AI is not free. So when you start looking at all that, and then you say, okay, how do we structure a operating system that not only uses technology, but uses the benefits of technology to come back to it and say, okay, how do I return money? How do I save this building money by using technology? And then you have a cost problem with labor right now, and finding good quality people that know how to manage and run and repair a building. And a lot of times you don't have that. You have air conditioning guys that are engineers, they understand ACs and they become an engineer. And over the time they learn the building, and, truly there's not many properties that have a true, what I would call, building engineer. Somebody's getting paid $250,000 a year or more to be an engineer. What you're seeing now in the industry is a lot of the big property management companies are hiring a couple of those individuals, and then they oversee 10 to 20 buildings with people that with less skills are in those buildings. And that's one way they're doing it. But it still takes a lot of manpower and labor in a building. The building gets worn every day. Walls get scratched, painting has to be done, water leaks in the property. So there's all these things that affect the day-to-day operations of the building. So by utilizing our platform, we not only make it more efficient and take some of the pain points away for the property managers on their day-to-day interaction, but we also look at maintenance as a big thing. And in this world, stuff doesn't usually get fixed until it's broken. And I call that reactive maintenance. So something happens, I go fix it. What needs to happen is to be proactive maintenance. Identify things that are going to break and fix them before they break, because they cost less money. And as an example I use with a lot of boards is, okay, think about your domestic water pump. They break, or over time they break. But they never break Monday morning at 9 o'clock in the morning. They always fail at Saturday night at 2 o'clock in the morning or something like that. So the repair costs, once it breaks, is huge, because now, do they have a pump? Do they have a backup? Do they have to order one? Do they have to fly one in? I got to get a crew in after hours, so I'm paying double time to have a crew of people come in, swap out the pump, get it working. I have an entire building that has no water right now, so every resident is uncomfortable. Whereas if I knew that that pump was having an issue, I could schedule a maintenance window, tell the residents there's an issue, so they're all prepared for it, and I could bring in the pump, let it sit there for a day or two until we can get a crew in at a normal time and swap it out. I just saved $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 on that bill by doing it proactively. So part of what we're doing is try to bring it all together. And you asked me, how do I bring all these different things for the different parts? Well, if you break down the silos of what you have. You have management, which is the day-to-day guests, visitors, packages, all that. That's part of property management. And then you have your maintenance component, which is part of the building, understanding the BMS system, the HVAC, the fire system, the water system. All those things happen. So we looked at it all and said, okay, how do we do this? So we have to communicate to the residents. So we have a platform, a mobile platform for the residents that we can communicate to them with. So they can get their car from the valet. They can look at emails and communications from the building about what's going on. We can tie in local restaurants and other things of what's happening, events in the area, and start to bring that in. And now we have security with technology, so I can use my phone as my fob. I don't need a fob anymore. I just take my phone and swipe it to my door. The fob opens the door, whether it be my resident door or it be public spaces for security reasons. So you got that technology. So by bringing all that into a single app, now I've got a resident that knows where to go to get that information because they go to that app all the time. They're in that app at all times. So it can be that. Then you have the building, and now you have, instead of paper work orders, you have electronic work orders, so you can track them. We're a big proponent of assets. Buildings don't really, non-commercial buildings don't understand assets. They get a building, they buy a building, they bought in the building, that's their building. But that building is made up of parts and pieces. And if you don't know what all those parts and pieces are, it's what I call the rot of the building. I may have 10 different, I have filters. If I know where all my filters are, I got to know when I got to change them. They become more efficient, things like that. I got pumps. I've got all these things spread out to the building. But when a building's turned over, you get 7 binders that says, here's all your equipment. You got no database. You've got nothing. So that was part of our theory with the developers is let's build that database as you're putting the equipment in, and we can track what the service on that equipment is. So a lot of what we do in that side is, okay, once I have a listing of all the assets I have in the building digitally in a database, then I can look and say, okay, these assets need a sensor. I can put a temperature sensor in the room, on the hallways to monitor the HVAC. I can put vibration sensors on motors, frequencies, use AI, machine learning to understand what's going on with the pumps. So I can preventatively, know that pump is going bad just by the frequencies. And, motors typically, when they go bad, they have a different frequency. And so we put sensors on those to monitor the motor so we can get an idea when there's a possibility it's going to fail. So all that stuff goes into all this information. And then the other thing that we're looking at is, okay, where are other areas that we can help them save money? And one of the biggest areas is insurance. So insurance companies are looking, how do I reduce my risk? I want, properties want a reduction in their insurance costs. So if we can bring all this together and we can show a insurance company, okay, our buildings run with this operating system. We're doing preventive maintenance. We're monitoring all this stuff with sensors. How do we show them that their risks are lower from having catastrophic failures when we're paying attention to this? So ultimately, that's what we're doing. We're building an LM for each building. And so their data is siloed in our system for that building. Then we can anonymize that data. And with the property's permission, we can allow the insurance companies then to come in and read that data and access that data and see that by being proactive on all this, they have less of a risk of a failure. And so that they can offer them a discount if they're using our platform. And that's ultimately what we want to be able to do. In addition, we want to take that data and be able to provide that to the boards so that they can make better decisions on what they want to do and where they want to spend their money. You look at ESG regulations that come about, things like that. We built a compliance component in our software that allows the managers to stay on top of that. Because what typically happens is the county or the city or the state comes out and mandates some sort of compliance issue that they have to have. But where do they put it all? How do they do it? Other companies go out there and make a company and do that for them for a fee. Well, why should you have to pay another company to do this when you have all this information in your building? So if I just have a place to put it all, and I have reminders built into the system for the managers, hey, you need to update this information, or we're automatically grabbing utility data and putting it in the system. So at the end of the year, when that report's due, you hit a button, it creates the report, boom, it sends it out, and you're done. Why do I need to pay a company to do that? So we start looking at all these things. So as we build this system, so yeah, we have ESG compliance, we have utility compliance, data information, waste. We're looking at every aspect of the building and saying, okay, how do I bring that information to the system? How do we manage it? I mean, I'll give you an example. There was an individual in the BMI that was a fireman, and he saw a problem in that fire trucks were arriving at properties and didn't have any information about the property. They knew what the building was. They didn't know where anything was. So he put together his idea was to build a platform that the information could be gathered ahead of time and then provided to the trucks as they roll up to the building on a mobile app. So they knew where the fire command room was, or they knew where the shutoff valves were. They knew where everything was. And I looked at him and I said, that's a great idea. Why don't we just put this information gathering? Because, he had to go out to every one of these buildings to gather information. And I said, let's just build it into our system. And they can fill out the form in there, hit a button, and submit. So that's what we did. So there's a guy that's building a whole process on doing it this way. And we were able to bring it in and put it in our system and be able to provide all of our clients to him where he didn't have to go out to the building. All that information was collected. So those are examples of how things, when you look at them from the outside and say, okay, how do I solve problems? So, you just make it easier. You're giving them one point to put it all in. So yeah, we use a combination of it. The more that the residents use the app, we get to know about them, what they want, what their likes are, what their dislikes are. How do we do it? I've always envisioned the client end of it is a huge opportunity, because what do they want? They move into a building and they want to know what's around them. So all those businesses that are located around them should be able to get on that platform and be able to say, hey, I have a restaurant here. You want, Spanish tapas, or you want a cleaning company? All those things should be at their fingertips. So, you mentioned earlier, and we've talked about it when we talked about smart blocks, and that's really what a smart block is. How do you integrate a building into a community? And how does everybody in that community communicate back? So if I live in a property and I just want to walk somewhere, what's the closest restaurant that has X? I don't need to be Yelp or any of those others. I mean, they're out there. You can use those. But if it's built into my platform, I know that within a mile, I have all this available to me in my app. People always go, wow, that's what Yelp's for, and that's what this is for, and that's what that's for. And I'm like, but Yelp is not personalized. It's just generic. It's just information. Here's a personalized thing to what's in my building. What's in my building? I mean, some buildings build restaurants and all kinds of things in there. And most people don't know it's there, because when they get here, they drive in a car, they drive to the parking garage, they go in the building, they go up to their unit. Every now and then they'll go, if they have a dog, probably the people with animals, they understand, damn, I'm sorry. They understand better what's around them because they walk their dogs around the neighborhood. So how do you get that information? And as a business owner, if I build and I lease that space from a developer, How do I know? How do I attract those people that are around me? Some properties get smart and they put together VIP programs. I've got one building right now, that's what they're doing. They have curated businesses and, they want their business. So they've gone out to them and given them a deal. And now we take that and we integrate that into the app. So
I love your all your insights, and I've been, as you saw, I've been listening, and you just blew up 20 of my questions one after the other, but in basically in in the correct order. It's unbelievable. I really appreciate all this information, and all this makes a lot of sense. And I really hope you can achieve all this integration into the same platform. Uh,
it's
because I'm sure you have all these ideas also that you have to put in practice at one point, or just starting, but everything makes a lot of sense. And I will go one step further. At AI Interconnect, our podcast, we are obsessed about how AI transforms industries, your industry. How are you integrated AI and machine learning or AI driven automation into eCierge today?
well, it's interesting. We've actually had a we've actually sat down, or I've sat down and tried to build, okay, what's my AI strategy? What is it? What do we want to accomplish with AI? What can we accomplish? There's so many things you can accomplish, but what makes sense? There's a lot of things in AI that people are doing right now. I laugh because it's just like, it's so simple, but there's no purpose. They just do these agents and go, oh, this would be cool. AI right now is a lot of, oh, this would be cool to do. But what problem are you solving? Are you making it harder, or are you taking away what are you doing to make somebody's life easier? And everybody goes, well, your life is easier with AI. You can use ChatGPT. And I go, yeah, ChatGPT, we've got a product in the system, because one of the big issues that you have in property management is you have this thing called condominium documents, and there's 1,600 pages written by attorneys of documents that basically govern how you you run the building. And so how does the average individual know what that entails? Because managers don't even know what that entails. I've seen condo docs from older buildings, and they're like post-it notes and little flyers here, pages done, highlighted, everything else. So what we did is we took basically a simple chat like ChatGPT and built a library that they can upload those specific documents, and the resident on their app or the management then can just ask a question to the AI about the condo docs, and it will search just their condo docs and give them an answer on page, and it'll reference back the page number of the line where it's at. So it's not searching the world, it's only searching in that little mini library of documents.
A knowledge base.
Yeah. And so we've taken that and now we've expanded it on, okay, I want to understand what happened in the meeting, so I can load meeting minutes. I can load financials. I can load different things in different categories and then search specifically for information that's contained in those what I call a mini library. And so that's one aspect of it. It makes it easier for residents to get information, as well as managers understand, and boards too, because they've got to read all the document. Oh, why should I read it when AI will do that for me? So that's a pain point that we can take away. So as we looked at what other things could we use AI for that was meaningful, and one of the ones that we haven't released yet, but we're working on right now, is what I call the morning brief. And so what happens is a manager typically shows up at a building in the morning and gets bombarded with 50 things that have happened overnight, emails they get, things like that. and she's got to deal with that, or he's got to deal with that for the first hour and a half of their day. So I said, what if AI could call me on my way to work, because I got an hour drive in traffic to work, and just give me a morning brief of what's going on? So that's the concept behind it, is AI will call the manager at a specific time, whatever time they set that they want their morning brief. And they will get a call, and the building will tell them, okay, we had, X number of packages delivered last night. We had 3 incidents. Incident, and then you go, okay, describe the incident 1. What happened? Because there's always an incident report that happens overnight. They get an email with it all in there, but I want the AI to read it to them. We have this issue. Then the manager will be able to say, please forward this information to my assistant. Let her take care of it. So right there on the call, I can get an hour's worth of work done while I'm driving in 15, 20 minutes. So when I arrive at the building, all this is taken care of. Now I can greet my residents, talk to them. I have some free space. I'm not pressured with all this stuff. And so that's an example of something that you can do using AI and use its power of AI to relieve some stress from the manager. And so those are a lot of the things we look at as we talk with our customers, get feedback from our customers. Not everything everybody wants. We have this theory is that if one person asks for it, okay, it's put it on the list. 2 people ask for it, okay, we'll start paying attention to it. Now we get 3 people that ask for it. We may start putting it in the plan to build for it. And then we'll take that and go out and talk to more managers and say, hey, is this a problem? How do we solve this? Can we solve this? And I had a manager tell me, we need to make it easier for managers to do videos. And I go, well, what do you do videos on? She goes, I like to do videos and talk to my residents about what happened in the building. Instead of sending them a newsletter or what we've been up to, I'd rather do a video, a personalized video that can do that. That's a pretty cool idea. And then I started talking to other managers. I go, man, there's no way I would get in a video. I'm not that type of person. There's not that. Some people are not that outgoing. So it occurred to me, I was like, okay, well, maybe there's a business opportunity here. Maybe we could do that for them. Have a spokesperson that creates these videos for the buildings for those that are camera shy. So, I take stuff like that and I try to figure out a solution because I think it's a really cool idea. Instead of getting a flat newsletter that nobody pays attention to, I get a video.
Yeah.
So, the same thing we did with training. We incorporated a whole video training platform into our system. And that came from another person that was doing a video training platform in BMI. So we're partnering with her. She's concentrating on the hotel business because that's where her base is. We're taking the platform and putting it in ours. So now we have all these training videos for staff and things like that because we need to educate these maintenance people on how to change the batteries in a digital lock. I've never done that before. So now we have a video they can take. And we can create a whole training program with all the videos from vendors and stuff like that can be incorporated. We can do customized videos. How do you want service? How would you want your guests to be greeted? Things like that. All be done. And now the staff can then pull it up on their phones or they can pull it up on the platform and take a 4-minute, 5-minute course. And they get a certification for it. So now when this employee leaves or goes somewhere else, they have all these certification that they've taken, and it's that digital record stays with them. So now they're more employable and they have some ability to show that they've been through all this training.
Yeah, that's very interesting. It's amazing the amount of great ideas and have to put this in practice. And when you have a platform or operating system dashboard, that's what you do. You can put everything together into the same platform. It makes a lot of sense. But let's get candid. And what keeps you up at night? Where, where are you? I don't talk about your wife. Where are you hitting the walls in scaling
Well,
eCierge?
yeah.
How do you sell it? How do you sell it? How do you get new buildings or new condominium?
Well, two things going for us. One, we already have a platform with the software that we built years ago, the property management software. We have a platform with over 1,000 associations and 100,000 users on that platform. So converting those users to our system is our goal first, because it's easy, because 50% of our platform is something they already use. So the sales process for that is easy. The hardest part that we have right now, and what keeps me up at night, is, and it's funny because there's two things that really keep me up at night right now. One is innovating, staying ahead of the curve, seeing what other people are doing and seeing how we could better do
That's
it better,
positive. That's positive.
you know?
That's a good way of being awake.
Yeah. But it's still, there's still that stress, and then scale. So we started with 3 properties. I took 3 properties of people I know. I said, I want you to be my guinea pig. I have a high-rise, high-end property. I have a mid-rise, 100-unit property, and I have an HOA. And so as we start to implement the platform, we start to figure out what it's going to take to do it. So one of the things that we learned early on, when I talked about this already, was understanding what shape the infrastructure's in. Because before you come in and you add all these IoT sensors and all this other stuff, you need a secure platform. So believe it or not, the first thing that we do, we start from a cyber perspective and an IT perspective. And we go to the property and we say, okay, we need to understand where your infrastructure is at. So what we do is a cyber evaluation. We physically go there, look at their infrastructure, map it out. Then we white hack the building. We literally get their permission and we hack the building. See if we can hack in. Where are the holes? Network sniffers, maps, any tool that we can use in our arsenal to understand what is going on. And this takes about a month for this to happen. And so once we get a map, then we know where all the holes are. Then we can sit back down with the board and we can say, okay, this is what we've done. This is what we found. You have a problem at, these 3 computers. We have this many networks that needs to be put down. We have no firewall. We have no security. Once we get the board to approve that, we go in and restructure the network, change the IP addresses, put a firewall in, VPN, whatever it happens to be, to lock it down. Once we've got the property secured, then we can put our platform in and start adding and get their assets. So as we're rolling out our platform, because our platform isn't 100% built, it's probably 20% built of what I envisioned to where we want to be. So there is a process that we have to get all the assets into the database. So the first thing that we built in the platform was an asset database, so we can get all that information. Because before we can put sensors, we got to know what you have. What are the makes? What are the models? What's all the information about it? What's the network look like there? Things like that. So we've got to build that whole piece. And so that process is what it takes. And then as we add new features, those new features come on board automatically. And now we can take advantage of what we want to eventually achieve with the full platform. So
what's the second point that keep you up at night?
Yes. And the reason being is, how do I scale? Because I know what I'm looking for.
Okay.
So one of the things that has occurred to me, and one of the things that I'm using, there's a lot of older retired engineers out there that used to manage these buildings. So one of the thought processes is to hire them to help me go evaluate these properties and identify all these issues, because they know all this stuff. They know all this older equipment. They know all of that. So by using them to go out and help in that process, In addition, we have partnerships that we're creating with other vendors, other suppliers of equipment, access control people, camera companies that do camera systems. We want to partner with them and let them do what they do best. I don't want to be a company where I have 100 employees doing cameras and access. That's not what I want. I want to sell software. So I've been working with some of our partners, learning what they need to know, and they're learning what I need to know, and teaching them how we go about approaching these properties and let them be my sales force. In addition, we have relationships in South Florida that I built over the years. So I can pick up the phone and they know who I am, things like that. And we can sit down and have a conversation. And I think the most valuable lesson that I've learned is working with boards is always tough. But if you can educate them so they understand more, I think some of the best meetings I've had with potential clients is where the board member comes out and goes, I actually learned something, and they get that we understand what we're talking about. Because when we sit in a room, I have other people that have been in this business just as long as I have next to me. I'm not Joe Schmo that just started my company last year. I got 25 years of experience, and I know I can look a board member in the eye and I can tell them, no, you're full of shit. This will happen because I have the experience. So that's an advantage that we have as a company. We tend to lean on experience. And the same with, I have a consulting company where I have people from all over the country that can come in and say the same things. You know what I mean? And so there's not really questions that we can't answer. If I need an EV answer done, I've got a guy that does electric vehicles charging. We can bring that expert in. We can help them in all these different areas. So we have a big breadth of connections, and I want to leverage that. And so I think about, okay, in the Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach region, I'm covered because I've been in this region. But how do we go to Orlando? How do we do Tampa? How do we do Atlanta? How do we do Cincinnati as I want to roll out? Yeah. And you look at what our market is, and I think the key is finding those key partners and helping them. Everybody, a lot of people tell me, and they ask me, well, how are you going to grow? How are you going to do this? And I said, I'm going to find these partners that have been around a while, and I'm going to help them build their business, because they're all chasing the same business. They all want the business from the developers. But the younger guys, they want to get in and get out. No, I want a long-term relationship. I have relationships with, it's funny, I had a BDA company I was doing some work with before the software. We did a meeting, and the national sales manager came down with me, and I had a meeting, and there was only 5 or 6 managers that were there. But every one of them, when I walked through the door, they all gave me a big hug and how are you? And, blah, blah, blah. And then he said to me after the meeting, he says, I've never been to a meeting with anybody where the presenter gets hugged from everybody. I said, it's because I've known them for 20 years. I know every one of those managers for a long time, and it's relationships. And so, when I look at my company and I look at what I want my company to embody, and it is the relationship with the customer is more important than the sale of one particular thing. And all my customers know that if they need anything, they can call me and I can find a solution for them. And I want to impart that same knowledge and that same ability for my staff to be that way. So I'm very much about customer service. I work hard to make sure that we build a customer service department that understands that philosophy. It's not about one sale. It's about 20 years of sales. And if I don't get it, I don't get it. You know what I mean? It's okay. I'm still here. I'm not going anywhere. And customers have learned. Oh, sorry, we went with somebody. Okay. And then who do they come back to? They always come back. And they ask again. I've got one business, one association. I've been with them since the day their houses came out of the ground. I'm still there. doing my little thing, and they keep asking me for these projects, and I keep telling them it's what they want to do. The board refuses to listen to me, but I never get the work, but I'm still there.
That's great mentality. That's helping each other and human center relationship is so important in business. And I really love your insights and everything I learned today. It was great having you here, Scott. This has been phenomenal, and thank you so much for sharing your journey, your wins, and the challenges, and the AI-powered future of eCierge. And uh, for our listeners, where can we find you, Scott, or learn more about your
You
the
can go to
company?
our website, eCierge.com. I'm on LinkedIn. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm willing to talk to anybody. I
That's
enjoy
great.
education. I enjoy bringing other people along for the ride. I like partnering with people that are like-minded. Everything comes about when you work together. When you fight, my competitors, they always think it's a competition. We're all doing the same thing. We're all fighting the same battle. I fight a little differently, and
Yeah,
you asked me in the last one, how do we get our customers? One at a time.
for
That's it.
sure,
It's a meeting,
for
it's a
sure.
relationship, it's building that relationship. It's one at a time. And believe it or not, we do that 3 or 4 times, and all of a sudden now I got somebody that comes to me and says, I got 50 properties. I want to use your platform in all 50 properties. It's about that relationship. So yes, I get them one at a
Wow,
time. I work hard for them. I go out and talk to them. I spend a lot of time just meeting, having conversations just like this. What do you do? And they get comfortable. A sales relationship should be about comfort with somebody they're going to take care of you.
definitely,
It's not about price.
definitely. That's we I'm on the same line. That's exactly my mojo, my motto, and we have so many things to learn and to share. I appreciate very much your wisdom, and we could talk another 2 hours, but we're gonna do another podcast maybe in a year from now, and see where you are.
I look forward
But
to it.
definitely we will talk and bring other solutions, and I wanted to thank you again, Scott, for
Oh,
today.
Lauren, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to talk a little bit more in depth about what we do. Sometimes in this new digital world, it's short little bites here and there, and it's nice to have a conversation where you can really get down to understand where it's going and what it's all about, because it goes out to it's about the story. And for founders,
Yeah,
that's the biggest thing. Understand your story and be able to tell your story heartfelt. And investors look at that too. I mean, we're all looking for
and
every founder's in the same spot. We're all looking for money. We're all looking for good talent. We're all looking to figure out, how do we keep going? How do we find the energy to wake up every day and keep plugging away? And I honestly, that's it. I worry about money. I worry about paying staff. I worry about having more developers to write my software faster so I can deliver this vision. And engineers and the right people. And you know what? Every day you get up, you put your pants on, and you keep going at it and fix what you can fix, and hopefully somebody starts paying attention. So yes,
yeah,
thank
no,
you for your
definitely,
time.
and that's what we hear, and that's why I appreciate this. Is exactly the purpose of this podcast, hearing stories and your fighting and your ideas and your insight and your vision for the future of a great founder, and that's what the AI Interconnect podcast is all about. And Scott, thank you again, and that's it for today's episode. And of the AI Interconnect podcast. And if you enjoyed it, share it with someone who is building the future, or better yet, someone who should be. And until next time, stay curious, stay creative, and keep building. Thank you, Scott. See you soon.
Thank you. Have a good day.